Unknown Philosophers Live. This is episode number 33. I think that's pretty fitting for our guest tonight. This will be our last Zoom interview that we do. What we'll be doing from now on is going out into the world, out into the field. We'll be meeting with guests, and that's going to be called Unknown Philosophers Traveler Series. You might have already watched a couple of those episodes. We visited a Freemasonic Lodge and also a dear friend of mine over at a Buddhist temple here in Tempe, Arizona. Our special guest tonight, I'm very excited, is Dr. Daniel P. Brown. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Daniel P. Brown. He's a renowned clinical and forensic law psychologist for almost 50 years. Harvard Medical School for almost 40 years as an associate clinical professor of psychology. A student of, translator for, and meditation master in the Indo-Tibetan, Bon, and Buddhism meditation traditions for almost 50 years. Dr. Brown is a peak performance coach to CEOs, a hypnotherapist of 40 years, and the author of at least 15 books on meditation and psychology, including Pointing Out the Way. So I recommend everybody go out and check that book out. This is what caught my attention, Dr. Brown. He has the only Western neuroscience study identifying the brain changes in the shift from ordinary mind to awakened mind. So I'd like to welcome you here to Unknown Philosophers. Dr. Brown, thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful.
For to begin by saying I have Parkinson's disease, so it means several things. One is that I've lost a lot of facial expression, so it's not a zombie apocalypse movie. And second of all, I've lost some atrophy of the left vocal cord, so sometimes my speech is a little slurred.
Okay.
But I'll try the best I can to make up for that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is wonderful. That last line, that just blew me away. And I was watching a lot of your videos online and your interviews, and it's just fascinating. The first question I would like to ask you is, if I'm saying this right, neurophysiology, how does it parallel to enlightenment? Like what does the brain look like when somebody? It's amazing you guys have been able to measure it now. What does the brain look like once somebody is in that full awareness that you talk about?
Well, we don't know that yet, but I can say some things about it.
Okay.
The meditation begins with concentration training. And concentration means activation of the ACC, the anterior cingulate gyrus. The cingulate gyrus is activated when you have competing attentional demands. So when you have to focus on one thing and tune everything else out, you activate the ACC. So if I were to give you a Stroop test, which is index cards with words on them, and the words would be about colors of the alphabet. So if I put the text is green, but it's really red, you do a double take. You focus on the color, you focus on the text, and it takes more effort to tune out the color and just focus on the text, or just focus on the color and tune out the text. So when you have competing attentional demands like that, it's a good activation of the ACC. So we know it gets activated. What we found with advanced concentrators is that they not only activated ACC, but they activate it in a special way. They had gamer activity, which means all the cells are firing synchronistically. It's a very unusual firing.
Wow.
So we interpret that as holding the view in a profound way. So they had gamer activity during a view that we call ocean of waves, which is a kind of timeless, vast, limitless view. And then they were able to stabilize that view. And they still have game activity. And they were able to set up the view for awakening, which is called lion's gaze. When you shift from awakened mind to ordinary mind to awakened mind, two things happen. One is that you don't localize awareness anymore. In other words, you have a limitless global awareness, and what drops away is the localization of that. You are that limitless global awareness, timeless limitless global awareness. It's the first quality. Localization drops away. Second quality is that there's something different, distinct about that awakened awareness. It's different from ordinary awareness. It has there's a number of scriptures in Tibetan. One is called Nar, which means intensity. It has Kriye, sheer awakeness. It has Dampa, sacredness. It has Chole, sparkling immediacy. It has Bole, softness. So as long as you don't make those qualities into things that you're looking for, there's something distinct about awakened awareness. It's different from ordinary awareness. You can recognize it right away. But you're operating out of this limitless, vast awareness. You are that. So what we found is when we shifted from holding that view to setting up the experience of awakening, then when they had that awakening, they manifested a kind of a gamma activity in the ACC. So they were holding the view, and they also had gamma activity in an area of the brain associated with switching from more localized to global awareness. So when you shift from a narrow awareness to a huge awareness, that's what needs to be awakened. And we have found gamma activity in that area of the brain, which is unusual. It means all the cells are firing synchronistically in that area of the brain. So that's what we have found with awakening. And that was a fairly definitive study. We had 30 subjects who all could do awakening, and we scanned them during awakening and when not in the awakened state, and we found that all 30 subjects were consistent with what they found. So then there's a path that's much further along called Tibetan Rangnam Ranglo. What it means is you hold that view of the vast expanse and you allow everything to arise within it.
Mm.
But you don't engage it. When you mentally engage something, that's what causes current memory traces to form. So every time you engage something, you form new current memory traces. But if you hold a view of the vast expanse and you're not engaging anything, you release those current memory traces. So it starts a process by which you start to release all those current memory traces. If you do that automatically, it takes about 7 years to release all the current memory traces if you do it with regular practice. But it builds up a momentum after a while, and you release everything. And then you achieve what's called Sangye. Sangye means purification of all negative states. There's no negative states left. Yewa means of flourishing. There's, depending on who you read, there's 80 to 85 positive qualities of a developed mind. And you manifest all those positive qualities at once. All the positive qualities flourish. So we have now a number of students who can do Sangye. We have enough students who can do it. And we collected the subjects' data, and we donated the students to go to the lab and to work on what the neurocircuitry for Sangye is. But then the pandemic came, and we couldn't run subjects in the lab, so we're waiting to the lab to open so we can start running the subjects again. But we're ready to go with this. And I suspect what we're going to find is gamma activity in the medial or prefrontal cortex, which is the positivity center of the brain. And it's the center for pro-social behavior. So I think that positivity has profound implications for mental health. So you're acting out of all positive states, and there's no negative states left. You've evolved your mind fairly far. That's Sangye. We now have 31 subjects who do that in a stable way. So we should know the answer to that soon this year.
Wow.
Third thing is full enlightenment. We have 2 students who have what's called fruition enlightenment. They are finished, they're stable. The 2 students who have what's called path enlightenment. It's not stable yet. We're developing it. So we have enough subjects to see what the data looks like in the lab when they have full enlightenment. We'll see what that means. I don't know what it means myself. You know?
Sure.
Thought about it. But the experience of full enlightenment is what I call, Buddha bodies. The three Buddha bodies that appear simultaneously. One is the infinite vast expanse of awakened awareness space. You live in that infinite vast expanse, and there's nothing that's solid anymore. Nothing that causes any reactivity. So you live in what's called a Dhammakaya. Dhammakaya literally means the embodiment of all the teachings. If you live in that space, you'll never go astray. You can't deviate from that. So that's the first. The second is you live in a Sambhogakaya, which basically means the sacred world. There's no mundane world anymore. The world becomes sacred. When you purify the world, you purify the mind, the world becomes sacred. So you live in the world of the mandala. And you are a deity in that mandala, and you know your identity in that mandala. So you become a Buddha figure in that mandala. That's your true identity. And thirdly, you plant the seed of aspiration. Aspiration means you want to help other beings. And to the extent to which you live in a sacred world all the time now, and most people don't, it'll break your heart. So you aspire long for that capacity to help beings. And sometimes that capacity explodes into thousands of pieces. Each piece is manifesting itself to help other beings along the path. So that's what we call the Manakayas, the emanation bodies. So you manifest multiple copies of yourself, all helping beings along the path inexhaustibly.
Wow.
And you have that simultaneous three Buddha bodies, the Dhammakaya, which is limitless, expansive awareness space, knowing awareness space. You live in the sacred world of the mandala, and you help beings along that path, guide them along that path. Then you have full enlightenment. Now, beyond that, there's a practice that beyond full enlightenment, where when you die, you go into a meditative state. And there's a special set of methods to transform the physical body into pure light when in the dying process. You meditate while you're dying. It takes 3 days to transform the body into light. And then what happens is the body disappears. All that's left is the hair and the nails, so inanimate parts of the body. But other than that, you manifest as light that floats above where the body was. And there are 4 methods to achieve rainbow body. One is that you continue to do what you do in this practice. You let hold of the vast expanse and let everything arise in it and don't react to it. Mm-hmm. That's the slow method. The fast method is you use a Dakini, who's a female wisdom energy form. You let her do it for you. Third method is you light the forest fire. You set up the view that all the molecules in the body are ignitable. And you light them on fire and you burn them up quickly. And the fourth view is, the fourth approach is that you realize that there's nothing to do because you have primordial wisdom all along. The body's only light. There's nothing other than light. So that one is a little unusual because you descend into space with a clear light gold body made of light. And you descend into space with smells and fragrances and chanting and prayers, and it's a spectacular display. So those are the 4 ways of achieving rainbow body. We're translating all the texts about rainbow body. Sometimes great masters leave behind what are called relics. Relics are little pellets about a millimeter in size, but they have an effect on physical reality because the mind of the master is still working. So it's been demonstrated in a tour of relics that were done that they emit energy and they affect physical reality. That was already done. The Dalai Lama used the relics in his tradition to donate them to science so they could be studied by scientists. So that relics still have, the mind of the master still has an effect on physical reality. It's amazing. Now what we're doing is we're analyzing the composition of the relics. We want to find out whether there's some substance in the ordinary world on the periodic table. Maybe they represent something that's non-ordinary reality. we just analyzing the results right now. The pandemic is over, the lab's open again. And we'll know in about 2 weeks what the answer to that is.
Wow.
So that's what I'm doing. I figured if
That
we
is
leave behind a taste of awakening, the methods to do that, and Western science on that, that you purify the mind, you have flourishing positive states and no negative states left. And you can achieve enlightenment. And we have the neurophysiology of all that. And that has a value for the West. So that's what I'm working on.
That is fantastic. And thank you for all of the work that you have done and everywhere you've traveled and time that you have spent with. I've again watched your videos with Realized Masters and these texts. Gosh, there's so much I could talk about with what you were. I understand everything you're talking about fully. I think about the master's bones, I think about the relics. I wonder if because of the years and years of stillness, you know what I mean, of the mind, that the person was able to become so still. We see that in nature, and it does change things. We use the word alchemically, can change the minerals and all those things. And we know we're not the mind, we're not the body, we're outside of that. And the fact that if you can measure that being is still affecting those relics, wow. I mean, I'm speechless.
Well, the mind has an effect on physical reality. We know that. It's been established.
Yeah, we do now. We do. Boy, I'm just the hairs on the back of my neck right now. That was everything you said was just so phenomenal. We have all these, it's almost like life is the mystery school we come into, and we have all these micro mystery schools, and I've joined a lot of them and I've learned a lot. It's where I found, oh, you mean we're supposed to study ourselves and go through these processes in our life? I didn't know that for many years. And as we go through these, it's amazing to me that there's processes, there's actually steps, and there's stages that have been recorded throughout time where you can kind of gauge if you are doing this work of where you're at. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, we see it in all the mystery schools, and a lot of it's confusing because it travels through cultures and gets mixed up. I think the stuff you're working on is really super tight. Can you talk about, I know you did earlier, but
Music traditions are on book and lineages.
Yeah, just the processes, of somebody. Let's take this for instance. Let's say you have somebody that's 20 years old and they don't know they do the fire, but they do that stage. They burn it all up at that age. And there's nobody around to talk to about where they're at now in that sense, right? And then they go 20 years of that. Can you fall from that state back into the material, back
Yes,
into the mind?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Can you talk about that, please?
You can go off track with the view. The view, we say the view is a meditation. So that every set of practices starts with a certain view for that level of practice. And you have to learn see the pith instructions. Pith instructions are how to set up a view. You set up very carefully. And they're always given the same way because they work. So once you set up the view, you do that practice. For every level of practice, there's a different view. The view is the meditation. You set it up. But you can also lose the view. You can intellectualize about it. You can think too much about it.
Yes.
And go off track. You can involve the self as an agent that's trying to make something happen, and none of that works. So you can go off track. And if you go off track, you lose the view. So that's why you have to be followed by a teacher who knows what you're doing and can tell you, look, you're off track, and keep you on track. But these are all parts of living lineage traditions. It's best when you work with the teachers. And you learn the pit instructions for that level of practice.
I watched a lot of your videos, and in the past 2 years, they have helped me tremendously, including listening to a little bit of Ganga Mira and a few others. And a question I have is, knowing I'm going into the mind, knowing, like you said earlier, let's say there's a negative field or there's a source or something, okay? And we go in and we touch it, right? We go in and we touch it and we come bound by it and we come susceptible to everything that goes with that little thing we kind of dove into. Is it a practice to stop doing that? You just do it less and less and less?
Well, what you have to do is you have to build the structure of the ordinary mind in order to be able to do this practice. So as a Western clinical psychologist, I would look at the nature of relational development. I look at the nature of self-development. I look at the nature of emotional development. And I look at the way of limiting beliefs that we have. Those are the 4 areas we look at, because those are going to interfere. So if you have poor self-development, it's going to interfere with your practice. If you have poor attachment, it's going to interfere with your practice. You have poor capacity to tolerate emotions, it's going to interfere with your practice. If you have limiting beliefs, and a whole series of limiting beliefs about this or that, it's going to interfere with your practice. So what we try to do is, for Western students, we provide them with the tools of psychotherapy. Not necessarily they have to be in psychotherapy with a therapist, but we try to translate that into a series of structured visualizations that work. So if you want to build a self-development, you do these visualizations over time, and you build a sense of self. If you want to focus on emotional development, you focus on a series of visualizations that are going to help you to tolerate feelings better. If you focus on limiting beliefs, you can identify those limiting beliefs with the Young Schema questionnaire, and you can identify which of those limiting beliefs are operative in your meditation practice, and you can change them. You need a series of structured visualizations to change them. So in each of these areas, we can identify what the problem is. So we can identify the problem and correct it.
Wow.
So one of the things is self-development. You have to have a strong sense of self in order to do emptiness of self. So the practice of developing a strong sense of yourself will come first. Once you have a strong sense of yourself, then you're less threatened by the fact of seeing yourself as just a mere representation, just an idea, which is emptiness of self practice. But if you do emptiness of self correctly, you don't weaken the self. You do it, just you let go of the self. You move beyond it. So you operate out of a field of awareness rather than operate out of a sense of self. You go to a shifting base of operation, so you operate out of the field of awareness. Eventually you operate out of limitless, timeless awareness. Eventually you operate out of limitless, timeless, non-dual awareness. And then eventually you operate out of awakened awareness. And on like that. There are stages along the way. And there are different methods, pith instructions that help you master every stage of that practice. I spent 50 years learning all those meditation stages.
Wow.
I had good teachers.
Seems like it's like a dissolve. It's as if I'm learning this correctly, we kind of go through life and we're looking at everything outside of us, connecting to it. It seems like these processes just start turning that laser then onto the self. And then you become like the Book of Thomas. It's like, and I've experienced this when it came around. Whoa, okay. They're the pieces that need to be dissolved for the full awareness. And when you talk about the students that are experiencing that must be amazing to be around them, because they're seeing reality as it truly is, out of the dualistic field. I mean, that has just got to be.
And most of them are grateful for that.
It's just got to be incredible. I've experienced those, but not holding it, out of the dualistic. Wow.
You can hold it, and then you develop the mind from there. So most of them are grateful for that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I think I run into a lot of people where I think have experienced, and that's why I asked that question, that have done a lot of these techniques and things on their own, because maybe they haven't found a teacher, they don't know they exist, that there are really people out there that can help you with these processes, and they've experienced it. And I think a lot of people get lost in thinking that like a butterfly, you just boom, you turn into the butterfly and you call it a day. That you can just go from here to here and you're in that fully enlightened state. Does that happen? Can that happen to somebody? Can it just, from poof?
Female teacher says, you may have experienced awakening many times in your life, but it didn't fit in your concept, so you dismissed it.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So that's what most people do. So they have to introduce it to them in a way that they can actually experience it, so it doesn't go away.
Yeah, one of the most powerful things I heard was some of your words, and again, going back to Gunga, her saying, "Stop going into the mind."
The experience of awakening is always right here.
Yeah, it's as if we've kind of covered ourselves with the atoms, would you say? Or are we all, this is kind of a weird question. I'd like to throw this one at you. As beings, we've covered ourselves with the atoms. Are we all projecting this reality together? Are we all agreeing that we're all one? Because I felt the oneness, but are we all together kind of projecting this atomic reality, what we're all experiencing right now? Or do you think it's a different entity, something maybe bigger, or it's hard to explain, right?
We live in a logical, positive world. We tend to see there's a world out there, and we tend to map the consciousness of that world. That's what we do in science. But some people come along and said that's just a construction of mind. So even the idea of out there-ness is a construction of mind.
Yeah.
So if you take that and to put it on its head, so you adopt an inward orientation, you start seeing the world as made up of light, and it's internally generated. So the entire world, as a magical display, as we call it, is made up of internal dance. It's not out there. Everybody's projecting the same world in a similar way. That will stun you when you realize that.
Oh, it's stunning me right now. Because my mind has had those thoughts, right? The mind gets to see things once in a while, and then it kind of, and
there's a practice where you look at you take an inward orientation, you look at everything that's made up from the mind. It's all light from the mind. And then what you see is a dense awakened awareness manifesting itself to itself and showing itself to itself. Then the path is stunning because the path unfolds every moment.
I had an experience yesterday. I was in meditation, just total silence and just out back. And I was thinking of the butterfly analogy of starting off as this and going through and putting yourself here and then popping out. And immediately, Dr. Brown, there was a butterfly who was black and brown, the same colors as my shirt and my shoes, and I had a red undershirt on, and he was in red trim. What do I do with something like that? So I see stuff like that quite a bit, and it's just because I am.
It's a wonderful magical display. Just accept the wondrousness of it. Don't try and get attached to it. As soon as you get attached to it, you're going to start looking for it, then you're off track.
And I just watched it, and I just watched it fly around. It was amazing. It almost reminds me of when you were talking earlier about focusing on the text or actually the background, the whole picture. And I felt like I was seeing just for that moment. It was beautiful.
In the whole view of this vast expanse, there's no reactivity associated with it. So it keeps opening up,
Wow. I hope to be able to contact you in the future for some future questions, because your words are just they're golden for me. I can't thank you enough. I've got another question here. We'll kind of switch it up a little bit and we'll check our time. Okay. What is the importance of enlightened leaders this day and age? Can they be effective without an enlightened population?
It's a good question. I teach a course in performance excellence at Harvard Medical School. I've done it for 30 years. I have one version for primary care docs and for surgeons, another version for executives, and I have a third version for judges. And that's what I've done for 30 years.
Wow.
And we teach them the basics of concentration and performance excellence so they can be the best at what they do. But what we notice is that performance excellence is a skill. You have to develop it. Some people develop it better than others. But you have to develop it. So it doesn't come naturally. But you can work on it, develop it. And there's a series of things that we do that would increase the probability of doing it. So taking that view and actually experiencing it.
Wow.
Once you develop it, then it's available as a tool. But you have to develop it. Most people, it doesn't come naturally to.
Yeah, I can imagine I think I heard you talking about this in one of your previous, and you said teaching this to judges. That was amazing, having a judge in the courtroom that's fully aware and like you said, and I think you called maybe the flow or the harmony or something like that. And that anybody can do that in anything that they're doing, whether they're somebody who washes cars or whatever it is, doing it at your highest ability. Are there techniques to help us with that, to just remind us that whatever I'm doing, even if it's cutting the grass, enjoy it.
Involve in some activity that you're really on your game, and see if you can identify the state of mind that you're really on the game. You do that right now. Imagine some activity that you engage in, and you're really on the game with that activity. You're in a peak performance mode. You're performing excellently. Now identify the factors of the state of mind that you're in when you do that. The more you think about it, the more you identify certain factors. So what is the state of mind like when you're in that flow? Just stay off the top of your head as you discover them. What comes to mind?
An experience of, I used to play in a band in my 30s. And I remember one show, I was a singer. And there was a moment where I was hitting the notes. All the notes were perfect. Everybody was playing perfect. The crowd was in unison. It was like I could just go like this and it would affect everything. And that's
interconnectedness. Everything's interconnected at that point. Whatever the mind does, it affects everything else in an interconnected way. So that's a strong part of your experience. Let's see what we can do on other aspects of it.
Wow.
Keep going. What else?
Yeah. Working on technology in the past, just because I wanted to finish a project so bad that the unquestionable questions that had never been asked before in that field were the answers were coming.
What's the state of mind you're setting up?
I'm sorry?
What's the state of mind you're setting up that leads to peak performance? What's the state of mind you're setting up that leads to peak performance? Identify it now.
Strong will.
Okay. It's important. So it's intention. It has intention, it has connectedness. See, what you're doing is you're identifying the parameters of this altered state for you. You're in a different state of consciousness when you're in that peak performance. You're identifying all the characteristics of that state.
Wow. Now, can we practice to be in that state at all times?
Yes, you can take a number of Olympians, and they would get involved in that state and practice it. And then what I would do is give them a cue. So, for example, an Olympic diver that I work with, he felt that he got on the diving board and he felt a curl of his feet on the board. That would cue him to enter his state. So he would never go into the dive without being in that state. So you can generate just the right state of mind so he was not all distracted. And you have a perfect dive that way. So you can generate that state of mind. Same way I tell a judge to, when he sits on a bench and everybody stands up and he sits down. At that point, that's the cue to be in a state. So we call it cue-induced learning. So upon cue, he enters that state. He's completely present on the bench. He's in his ideal performance state. That's where we want to be there. He's going to do a much better job as a judge that way.
Absolutely.
Never anybody. You just train them to be in that state. They learn to access that state. They learn to see when they miss that state, they're off track. They learn to identify what makes them go off track, what parameters are they going off track, and then they can re-access the state. Once they learn that, they don't go off track so much.
It'd be amazing to learn how to be in that state and stay in it without the environment, relying on the environment maybe to push you into it. I'll give you an example. I'm a skateboarder, and there's a phenomenon in skateboarding I'm 48 years old, and I'm still able to skate the swimming pools and stuff like that. There's a phenomenon in this culture in skateboarding where when we get together, we call it a vibe. The word vibe, vibration, is very popular in skateboarding, a good vibe, right? Somebody will drop in the bowl, they'll come around, do an air or something. Everybody will cheer them on, and you can feel it. And then the next person that go kind of maybe will learn a new trick. And I've been watching this for so many years in the skateboard community, how this vibration on the outside is working with everybody again in harmony, and it's able to push that individual. I've seen in Zen states, where somebody jumps over the light all the way over the filter and back in on a skateboard because the vibe was so powerful. Now they're doing things that are just, they'll do a trick and everybody goes, oh.
They're in all the state of consciousness. They're evoking that state and know how to evoke the state. So they stay in that state flawlessly. That's what.
I wonder if they know that. I don't know if you've seen the big jump where they'll go over. I know a couple of these guys, they'll go over a huge jump and then go, 50, 60 feet up in the air, spinning on a transition that's 40 feet high. And I'm just watching them going, they've got to be in that state to be able to do that. Everything has to be so precise.
A good example of that was the women's soccer team about 12 years ago. And what they did was they had worked with Terry Oleg's lab in Calgary. And they had a peak performance coach. And they all did self-hypnosis and they entered that state. They did that, they put a Sony Walkman on and they entered that state with the instructions they had. And they all did that at once. And then before they came out in the field, then they beat a superior team. The Chinese are a much better team. But they were all performance mode, and that made all the difference in the world. They learned to evoke that state and stay in it.
That's incredible. And I'm a soccer fan too. And we saw that. That it makes sense. It makes sense now that harmony, that vibe just picks everything up. That's incredible. We see what other questions I have here for you. This has been amazing. What are some common mistakes? So a lot of Westerners now are getting into meditation. I've been doing it now for quite a while, trying to teach folks a little bit of what I know. What are some of the common mistakes that you can share with me that maybe I might even be doing that we as Westerners do when it comes to meditation?
There are three common mistakes. One is to the master in the Bon tradition charges me, which I call the attachment to conceptualization, conceptual meditation. You're not really meditating, you're thinking about meditating. So you have all these fleeting thoughts that go on and it seem justified. You're not really meditating, it's a common thoughts at all. You're just thinking about it. So that's a common problem for Westerners. The second is to operate out of a sense of self. For me, I would evoke danness and I would operate out of Dan. And Dan would be doing the meditation rather than awareness doing the meditation. Awareness is doing a better job of meditation. So those are the common mistakes. And the third is attachment to states. After a while, you get beyond the basics and you've got attachment to light and luminosity, you get attached to stillness, you get attached to bliss. And then you justify that because it's all meditation experiences that seem weird and wonderful. Just getting attached to the states. So you have to move beyond the attachment to any state. Then you get somewhere. So that's when we have a relationship with a teacher. So you cut through all that stuff. You don't waste time with it.
I just heard my wife in the background go, wow, because we've been through all that and we wasted years. I mean, the exact stuff you're saying there, I mean, there were times it was excruciating. I mean, well, I guess maybe it has to be at the beginning, whatever, but I don't know. Wow. Yeah.
Blowing my mind.
Yeah. It's, the thing that's helped me is, and it's been a practice of getting in front of myself before I arises, and just stay in that space where we can all meet. It feels like that's the space before the I is where we can all meet. I don't know what I'm saying, but I always pull that out when I come out of meditation.
In meditation terms, you're emptying as a self. What you're doing is you look for the self as merely a representation. It's not substantial.
Yeah.
So you evoke the sense of self. I evoke danness, and I look for it, search into my experience to find danness. And no matter where I look, I can't find it. It's slipping away. It's unfindable. And then if I get that experience of shift of unfindability, I just see it's just an idea. Then I shift my base of operation, so I'm not operating out of danness anymore. I'm operating out of a feeling of awareness, a feeling of no awareness, and do a better job with that. So I have to keep shifting out of this emptiness self-practice, so I don't get caught up in the sense of self. Then I operate out of the field of awareness. Awareness will do a much better job of meditation and knows what to do. So you got to get out of your own way.
Wow. I'm just trying to think of a question for you. It's I just feel your stillness. I don't know if that makes any sense. Tibetan maps to awakening. Are we gonna see these out in the public or sometime? I don't know if you've published in any of the translations that you have done, or is there anything? Okay.
But there's a journal called, what's it called? I think it's called Individual Differences. And consciousness and individual differences. That's where we published the Awakened study. So that's published. The book on Rainbow Body is not published yet. We're waiting for the lab to open up. It's just opened up now. It's been pandemic for 2 years. Now we're just analyzing the relics. There's the book is already copyrighted, and we'll finish publishing probably another one. The relics have been analyzed this last weekend, so we'll know what the answer is soon.
Wow. I'm excited. I can't wait.
But when I did that book, it changed because my teacher, His Holiness Memory Treaty, who was the head of the Religious Order of the Bond, he taught me all the instructions for rainbow body relics. And he said that when you do this practice, you have to do it in a way that there's nothing left. You know, to resolve all the substantiality of the body. And you have to do that while you're dying. So it's hard to concentrate when you die. If you can do that with a clear mind, then you transform your body into light within 3 days. That's the highest achievement you can get. So we know something about how to do that now. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be around anymore because of the Parkinson's. So I'll do that practice when I die. I'm ready to go with it. But you realize there's no dying to be done. There's another 8%. You just become part of the Dharmakaya, and you have still intention left, and you can intend to appear and to teach beings in various ways, according to what's needed. So you never really die. You're a permanent teacher. So you have to master the dying process. It's the highest achievement.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've seen, not in person, but I have seen a video of a monk going through that process, and it was real.
There's been a couple of videotapes here and there.
Yeah, I hope when it comes to my death someday that I have the opportunity to, it's not something quick and and I have the opportunity to do that, because I think about that. And you talked about becoming enlightened and maybe possibly being able to come back and teach at certain times. And I was thinking about that a few months ago before I saw you talking about that on a video, because I was thinking, man, if I could come back, what year would it be and what age would I want to be? And I only know of what I know, but I picked 1985 at the age of 12 would be pretty fun. And I was 12 in 85, and I thought that was, my imagination had some fun with that.
Great masters can do what's called mind-to-mind transmission. They don't really die. I used to teach a course with Vartogo. And Vartogo was the emanation of Padmasambhava, the great master.
Yes.
So he was the emanation of Padmasambhava for this generation. He died 2 years ago, but I still teach with him. So when we did the course, we invoke him. It's direct mind-to-mind transmission, directly into the minds of the students. So we're continuing the courses. He just doesn't come in form body, that's all.
Wow. Can they come in your dreams?
Sometimes. But you have to master deep sleep and dreaming. Dreams are when you manifest karmic memory traces manifesting themselves. So you get caught up in dreams easily. So you want to practice self-arising, self-liberating. The thing that clears all the dreams is negative states.
Now, is that something you do before you go to sleep?
Something you do while you're sleeping.
Okay.
The whole thing, there's a deep sleep yoga and there's dreamy yoga. You do both. Although the deep sleep yoga is more superior than dream yoga, because what you have there's no thoughts during deep sleep. There's no content, unlike dreams.
Wow.
So what you have is a field of awareness, and it remains somewhat bright. And the brightness of the field is a measure of the clarity of your consciousness. So if you recognize that as clear light of deep sleep, and that's the same as awakened mind, then you game over. You become a Buddha in the spot.
Wow.
So you use deep sleep as a vehicle for full Buddhahood, realization of full Buddhahood. It's always taught that way.
Wow.
There's
And with that,
about it. Some people don't teach it because they think you should become awakened during daily life. Some people teach it because for those who don't get awakened during daily life, they can get a chance to get it again second time in dreams. So the two schools of thought on that. It depends on whether you open up awakening during daily life or whether you open up during deep sleep.
What's amazing in India, when you step back and watch the full picture, when somebody is in a deep meditation and the town there has seen them sitting there for 2 or 3 days, it's amazing how nature will people will start putting flowers around them and praying over them and asking them questions. And all I did was sit there for 2 or 3 days. But it's amazing to see what it creates around it.
That's true. And the great lamas become rainbow light.
Yes.
It manifests as light floating in space.
Yes.
At some point that light disappears. But that's convincing. The body disappears. It's like the resurrection.
Wow. This has been absolutely incredible, Dr. Brown. I can't thank you enough for your time this evening. I can't wait to go back and watch this and just learn some more. This is I don't know. I'm sorry.
I apologize, my voice is not clear, but I did the best I could.
Like, we could hear you clearly. It did wonderful. You could hear you clearly. Absolutely. This is I don't know what turned me on to awareness and enlightenment, but at some point in my life it did. And I'll be forever grateful for your words, sir. You've definitely given me some sentences to help me, I don't know how to explain it, but kind of I get into the field.
Trying to give you a view of the views of meditation. Now you go through and practice it. So
yes.
Now you know all this stuff is real and it exists. Now you have to practice it. So this should teach you strong trust in yourself. Now you have to go out and do it.
Yeah, the meditation the past 2 years, I've been doing it for many hours a day, and I've done it for days as well. And where it helps is again, where you walk into those negative fields or something coming, it allows you to just stay still. It's almost like you go from that spot to, and I think you were the one I learned this from, to learning it there and then getting out of that position and then walking in it, right? And then going out into public in it. And I've been practicing that. And I believe I've learned that from one of your teachings.
I'll come take a course at some time. It's 6 days long.
I would love to.
And it goes from concentration to emptiness to awakening in 6 days. So
I would love to.
I want to too.
My wife just said she's ready as well. We're going to come visit you.
Okay.
Yeah, might be in a week or so. No. No. We'll send you. We'll send you a text message. We would love to do that. So we'll go ahead and close. I want to thank everyone for watching our show. We want to thank Dr. Daniel P. Brown. Definitely check out his books. We'll talk about his websites. I also want to thank Brother Cosmo and Jason, who hosted the past shows with me. I want to thank my wife for producing the show, being the manager, being my handler, keeping me on track here, and the bouncer. We've done 33 episodes on Zoom, and we started doing them because of COVID. And this was our last one, and it was an awesome one. throughout the past year and a half, we've learned about the vastness of Freemasonry, intellectual freedom fighters from the past. We've had folks that talked about the Rosicrucians, the Enlightenment, Templars, Hermeticism. We even had Dr. Eric Van Doniken, and we talked about aliens, which was interesting. But Dr. Brown, this was by far my favorite. So I can't thank you again for joining us. Join us as we start our new series called Traveler Series, where I'll be traveling around the world and interviewing folks. And when we meet Dr. Brown, possibly we could do another interview. At the end of our show, we always ask our guests if they could leave us a quote, maybe your own or one that is special to you that we could all use during the week to kind of help us have a better week this week.
Light is perfect as it is. It manifests primary wisdom, showing itself to itself for the sake of its own realization. If you understand that, then the path shows itself to itself.